Cheerilee looked up to see Snails, thankfully in the right spot between the stage lights, waving at her sheepishly. The, the ushers took their cue from the music, and slowly the lights in the theater hall died down. The pace of the music increased, and the feeling of anticipation intensified, until suddenly the curtain slid open, and a few feet, accompanied by the rolling of drums. She stepped forward past the curtains as Snails turned on a spotlight and aimed it at her, bathing her in a circle of light as she moved. Despite the curtains being partly opened the darkness behind Cheerilee, revealing nothing to the audience. The music stopped and Cheerilee's voice took over, ringing out crystal clear throughout the enormous room due to the perfect acoustics. Fillies and gentle colts, it is with great pride that my students and I welcome you to our very own play. They have all worked so hard on this over the past few months, and we hope you will enjoy it as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Of one thing I am certain, that this will be an evening you won't soon forget. Cheerilee smiled. Widely despite herself, it was just the kind of opening she thought every pony would expect, but she was certain the last part would turn out to be true in more ways than one. And now, without further ado, I am proud to introduce, performed in Ponyville for the first time ever, Reginald the Sly. The music exploded again during her last words as she disappeared behind the curtains. Follow them to the right side of the stage as they slid open behind her. The music died down once again as the spotlight was turned off and the main stage light were turned on, slowly illuminating the scene. Cheerilee could hear the music starting while she went down a set of stairs to go underneath the stage. The size of the stage itself was impressive, but the area underneath was simply amazing. There was plenty of room to install all sorts of devices to spruce up any kind of play. The stage itself was thick and well isolated enough for that ponies could work down here without disturbing the actors on stage. She had once started banging a metal pipe against some of the iron stage supports during rehearsal, just to see if her students would hear. They hadn't. She made her way in between the beams supporting the stage and the various props and gadgets that reached down the stage, heading to the prompt corner. She finally arrived at a few wooden steps, which took her to a level halfway between the stage and around or area underneath it, so that only her head peeked up above stage level. From there, she could watch the play from the same side as the audience, without actually being seen by the audience. Due to the way the prompt corner was built into the stage, from the audience point of view, it just looked like a slightly raised box. During some of the plays, a prompt would sit here to feed actors their lines if they forgot. The dialogue in this wasn't overly complicated. They had never rehearsed without the possibility of a prompt in mind. Cheerilee didn't think any of them would even realize she was there. She tried to pick up the thread of the play, since she had obviously missed some of it on her way here. It seemed slightly further along than Cheerilee had expected, but she didn't know if this was because of them rushing or leaving something out, or if she had just been walking slower than she thought she had been. She shook her head. It didn't matter. The scene wasn't important to her. A grin spread across her face as she sat and watched and waited for a scene that was. Apple slammed her hoof on the table as she dramatically looked first to the left of the table, then to the right. All of this is meaningless. We still have to put a stop to this Reginald the Sly, and I don't care who does it or how, she said, trying her best to suppress her accent. Okay then. She was most likely the one with the biggest grasp of the script, simply because sticking to her lines made avoid her accent easier. As soon as she drifted from them even a bit, it was all that over, and the accent was back in full swing. It sounded very odd out of her mouth, of a king, to be sure. But my king, I maintain the violence. I maintain violence is not the answer, Silver Spoon said. If you would just let your royal advisor and I work on diplomatic solution, then I am sure that... No, the king cut her short. Do you think I know not what goes on when I have my back turned? The two of you will stay here. Sir Lancelot the Brave, I entrust this task to you. Find this villain and bring him back here, so he may face my judgment. She decreed as she leaned forward over the table, pointing her hoof at Scootaloo before banging it on the table. Just leave it to me. I'll bring him back kicking and screaming, Scootaloo said as she raised the hoof enthusiastically. Completely ignoring the script, the lines she should... Unfortunately, it came down to much the same, which was probably the only reason the Phillies didn't hear Cheerilee gritting her teeth all the way out on stage. Scootaloo got up from the table and bowed down before her king, before taking a few steps away from the table and turning around. The lights went out for a short moment and then were turned back on. Only Scootaloo was still on stage. The king's table was completely deserted and less lighting was focused on the area than before. In addition to this, Scootaloo was now carrying a white lance around with her, holding it under one of her wings. She started walking across the stage, taking roundabout routes around some set pieces of decor. These are wild lands. There is no doubt. Somewhere that Weasley Reginald be. So where could that Weasley Reginald be? I heard he's sly as a fox, and true as that may be, he'll never outwit the likes of me. Ooh, rhymes. Speaking thusly of Sir Lancelot came up to a part of the stage that quite obviously represented a mountain with a mine entrance leading into it. The backdrop of the decor served as the mountain, while the Swallow Mine entrance was more of a little building on stage, and expertly made. A small hooded figure suddenly emerged on the scene, wearing black robes. His face was hidden by the hood, but anyone could deduce it was Snips, based on his height and simple process of elimination. The new arrival casually strolled down the same path Sir Lancelot was currently on, and it wasn't long before they crossed paths in front of the mine itself. Halt. By order of the king, I, Sir Lancelot, have come to put an end to Reginald the Sly. Are you he? Scootaloo said louder than was necessary even during a play. Oh no, noble knight. I am but a simple hermit living in the mountains yonder, the robed figure replied as he motioned towards the mountain in the distance. Scootaloo scoffed at this and raised her chin. A little thing such as you could indeed not have been much of a challenge. You look like you can hardly stand upright during a gentle summer breeze. Now tell me quick, simple soul, if I wish to find this Reginald, where should I go?